Hello and welcome back to another update in the Israeli-Palestinian war, where we start out in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, where the Israeli forces have managed to gain a foothold here to the west of Nahal Oz, which is one of the kibbutz east of the Gaza Strip. And we see that they have managed to gain this area right here. It seems that they are preparing some offensive operations in this direction towards Gaza City itself, after their operations in the western parts of it. At the same time, we've also seen that they've managed to advance here by the Indonesian hospital. They look to want to cut off this salient here in the north of the city, where they're looking to try and gain control of this whole area by cutting it off completely. So it seems that the Israeli forces are here looking to gain full control over the northern and southern edges of the city areas, the urban areas, to try and close off the areas outside of the city so that the fighting can remain in the urban areas. At the same time, despite the offensive operations continuing here in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, they have gone way beyond just starting an operation in the southern parts and have actually broken through to the city center of Yunis. This is a much smaller city than Gaza City. However, it is still significant that they've managed to advance and break through to the center of the city. They claim that they have managed to reach the house of the leader of Hamas. However, it doesn't seem that they have actually done that. It is something along the lines of them claiming they have, and then the military leader said that they consider Khan Yunis the house of the leader. So them reaching the center of the city could be what they mean. But in the end, we see that they've managed to cover massive areas, and they are launching a three-pronged attack here to the southeast of the city, the northern parts of the city by the Salahuddin Road, and towards the coastline here in the north. So it seems that they want to create the three areas, and they're leaving the middle area alone for now, as it seems that they are focusing on Khan Yunis itself. I think the Israeli plan here is to gain control over Khan Yunis and then move northwards, after which they'll finish it off by Rafah, because Rafah city itself is right on the border with Egypt, so it is the most dangerous part to be fighting, because it could easily end up being a massive bombardment of the Egypt part of the border. So it's very dangerous to fight there. So it'll likely be the end of it, where they'll try to go slowly towards it and hope at that point that there would be no resistance among the Palestinians at that point. But it seems that the Israeli forces have covered large areas and have managed to reach the center of Khan Yunis, and them also having positions in the center of Gaza City shows that they are now in the center of all of the most important cities. And with that, we see that the Israeli forces have covered large areas. But this also means that they're spread across this whole area, and that leaves up vulnerable positions, like this camp here that was detected by Hamas, and they, and luck being on their side, had a tunnel leading just to the middle of the camp, where we get this video here. In the video, we see a camera from the Hamas fighters that shows the inside of the Israeli camp. We even see Israeli fighters within the camp. It was later reported that the Hamas fighters filled this tunnel with explosives and they blew it up, after which they stormed the camp to look for any survivors, and they claimed that they had gotten rid of 60 Israeli soldiers in this operation. So we see that there's actually a significant change in what happened here in the central parts. It was actually here in the southern area of Gaza City, so we're in the open fields here. So the Hamas fighters have tunnels everywhere, and the fact that the Israeli fighters did not check for these tunnels enough to detect it in a camp that they have built shows that they aren't thorough enough with their clearing of tunnels, and as such the Hamas fighters will likely be able to fight for a long time if they do not increase their efforts in detecting these tunnels, because building a camp on top of a tunnel ended up having such dire consequences for their army. We then move on to this image here, where we have the image of Israeli soldiers by the coastline somewhere in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, where they have these pumps that pumps water from the Mediterranean Sea into some of these tunnels. So the idea here is that they fill up these tunnels with water, making them unusable, as Hamas does not have the necessary equipment to breathe underwater, and therefore they will not be able to use these tunnels when they're filled with water. It is interesting to see how effective these are, but it's already reported that they fill up a lot of these tunnels this way, and as such they will be able to cover a lot of the tunnels that they have found. How interconnected and the infrastructure itself under the ground, we do not know, so we do not know how effective it can be. But if it is all interconnected and they all end up in the same place, then eventually these filling of the tunnels will be very effective. And that is what the Israeli army is likely betting on. We then move on to this video here, which is one that was showcased by Al Jazeera, the Qatari news channel. And we see that there are multiple Hamas fighters with RPGs hitting Israeli tanks. And some of them even blow up completely, burning down to a crisp. So we're seeing that the Hamas fighters continue their ambushes of Israeli armored vehicles all throughout Gaza City. And this is a huge issue for the Israeli fighters, because in the end, they cannot deal with constant duck-ups of Hamas fighters all throughout the city. These tunnels are definitely the biggest strength of these Hamas fighters. Without them, the war would have ended probably at this point. So we see that the Israeli forces are still facing difficulties dealing with these fighters going through the tunnels and popping up everywhere throughout the city. I need to emphasize the type of fighting that is happening within the Gaza Strip, so we better get an understanding of how the map works. Because currently we can easily see that Israel is clearly winning based on the territories that they've managed to capture. Although the fighting has now continued for approximately 2 months since the Hamas fighters started their operation on the 7th of October, which is exactly 2 months ago, we see that the Israeli forces have managed to reach the center of Gaza City as well as Khan Yunis, but they haven't really ended the war yet at all. So the reason stays, what is actually happening and what is the progress so far and so on? We have to take a closer look at what is actually happening. So these cities are very big, and the Israeli forces have captured large heaps of territory. Yet since the ceasefire ended a couple of days ago, I believe now a week ago, they have not managed to capture that much territory. It is essentially just these 2 parts that they've managed to capture. This raises the question, if they've already captured this much, why is it so slow for them to continue? The main reason for this is that they have to deal with the territories that they already hold. Because although they hold these territories, there are still tunnels within them. This means Hamas fighters can just pop up whenever and wherever they want, essentially, throughout these territories. So the Israeli forces within Gaza City have to constantly deal with the Hamas fighters using the tunnels. So they need to get rid of all of the tunnels before they can actually have and say that they control these areas. Therefore, we're seeing that the main fighting is actually taking place within the occupied areas of the Gaza Strip, because the Israeli fighters are now fighting there with the Hamas fighters. It is not taking place by the front line at all. It is happening exactly where the front line has stopped. For example, here by the Indonesian hospital, there's very likely heavy fighting. This is why the advance was so low. As well as in the Beit Hanun area, there's a lot of fighting due to the fact that they hadn't really advanced since the 18th of November, which is prior to the ceasefire. As for the eastern parts of the Gaza Strip, the Israeli forces are likely planning on a new front here in this area. As for the Khan Yunis area, the Israeli forces have made significant advances, but likely they haven't really fought that many Hamas fighters yet until they reached the center of the city. That's likely because the Hamas fighters would be popping up in the tunnels all throughout the road, but not really at the front line. Again, they have captured these areas here at the start of the end of the ceasefire. We'll likely still see fights here in the area where the Israeli forces are present. So this is the type of fighting we've seen take place. It is not direct frontline fighting. It is fighting wherever the Israeli forces are present, because that is where fighting will happen. The Israelis will never initiate a battle. The Hamas fighters will always initiate a battle, because they're the ones who know where the Israeli forces are. The Israeli forces don't really know where the Hamas fighters are, because they are underground. So unless the Israeli forces go into the tunnels, they will never actually initiate a battle themselves. So that is the sort of progress we're seeing. It is the fact that Israeli forces may control large parts of the Gaza Strip, but how much do they actually control? We don't really know, because we do not know the progress of them destroying the tunnels. And that is going to be all for this update. Thank you for watching and have a great day.